Oysters in the Chesapeake Bay have been harvested for over a century.
When the settlers came over, there's anecdotal stories of oysters being as large as dinner plates, and so it became a gold rush mentality.
Well, at first we saw an economic boom, and that gave way to mechanization and efficiencies that allowed us to harvest oysters at an exceedingly alarming rate. That actually led us to overfishing a resource that wasn't sustainable.
Degradation to water quality and other negative impacts to the Chesapeake Bay have reduced the populations to really low levels, 1% to 2% of their historic population size.
By cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay, we're not only helping the population of those bay critters, but also the dolphins, the sharks, the turtles, the birds that migrate into the area.
The basic premise of oyster restoration is simply to put shell back out into coastal waters and to add oysters into those waters to provide a source of new oysters and also habitat.
When National Harbor opened here in Maryland, we started the oyster shell recycling program because of the state of the Chesapeake Bay. I mean, the Chesapeake Bay is basically the heart of this region. So to find out that the waters had been overfished and not treated properly for a number of years, it was a natural cause for us here at MGM.
The Chesapeake Oyster Alliance is a coalition of partners coming together with the common goal of placing 10 billion oysters back in the bay by 2025.
MGM Resorts has had a process in place for many years on managing food waste responsibly. But prior to this program, we didn't have a process or infrastructure in place to be diverting oyster shells from the landfill. When we opened National Harbor, as part of our sustainability efforts, we worked with chefs and food and beverage teams to start collecting oysters to send it to a local oyster farm.
We're kind of a medium-sized hotel and resort in comparison to what we do in Las Vegas. So obviously the first thought process is if we can make an impact with what we're doing here, with the amount of oysters that we're going through in all of our restaurants in Las Vegas, that impact can be compounded exponentially.
A program of this magnitude takes collaboration, innovative thinking, and commitment to make sure that we are doing what's right. These shells are picked up by our stewarding team and taken to our recycling docks at the property and placed in designated oyster recycling bins. Renew Oil of America, one of our suppliers that happens to be a diverse-owned business, picks up the shells from our property and then they transport them to their facility just on the other side of the strip. Another supplier, Western Elite, picks up the shells from Renew Oil of America and transports the roll-off bin to their facility, and the shells are laid on the ground there and they dry much quicker because of our hot climate. Once the shells are dried at Western Elite, Hooper's Island in Maryland coordinates logistical trucks to come and pick up the shells from Las Vegas, and they transport them back to Maryland twice a year.
So the hatchery is actually square one for our restoration process. There we produce strong, healthy oyster larvae, growing our own clean algae food in-house. And after a couple weeks in the hatchery, the oyster larvae reach maturity. Then we can use them to produce spat on shell. We place the recycled half shells that MGM provides to us and the larvae in a setting tank. And after a few days, you can actually take that half shell out of the tank and see tiny little specks of oysters on there that will grow to be adults on an oyster sanctuary where they filter water, provide habitat, and reestablish oysters across the bay.
Fast forward a year, and this is what you can see. You can see these adult, mature oysters, and it's just like a handheld water filtration plant.
All the spat on shell that we produce with our partnership through MGM will be placed on oyster sanctuaries across the bay. With our local partners like ORP and the Chesapeake Oyster Alliance, we can protect these oysters for generations to come. Oyster sanctuaries are traditionally grounds that we knew had heavy populations of oysters in the past. Those grounds are now protected, which means that we can't harvest from them until we know that the population can sustain a harvest again.
As a result of this program, MGM Resorts now has an opportunity to create a circular economy by purchasing oysters and ensuring that they are recycled back into the Chesapeake.
We're actually sending more oysters back into the water than we source as a company. For every half shell we send, we're able to grow up to 10 new baby oysters.
We can't do it alone. You don't have to live in and among the bay to be a part of it.
It's so important to try to get the Chesapeake back to its former state and its previous glory because it's just so integral to this entire region.
Having a large corporate partner like MGM not only means that they can provide the resources we need to execute a restoration project like this, but it also means that we can share our story with the world. And that's what's most important to us. It's a win-win benefit for everyone.
It makes me really proud to work for a company like MGM Resorts who believes in going to such great lengths to have a positive impact on not only our communities but also the planet. And it's also really exciting to be able to come together with one common mission, and that's to help save the Bay.